Hi, I'm Andy Beck. I'm an artist and photographer based here in Teesdale in the North Pennines of England. In this series of short films, I'm going to show you how I converted my Nissan NV200 into a camper van and mobile studio. The films show the various stages of the process. Now, I'm no expert, I've never converted one of these camper vans before, so there will be trials and errors in these films. I hope you get information and inspiration that you can adapt for yourself if you're thinking of converting not only a Nissan NV200 but any other sort of small camper van. Feel free to leave questions or your own ideas in the comments boxes below, and wherever necessary I'll give you a reply as soon as I can. The whole of this conversion has cost me just over £1,100. So here you'll see what you can do for that sort of money. Here's the film. The next item I'm going to look at constructing is what I'll call it the sink section or sink unit, and that will be placed just about here. It will be a small unit constructed out of these doors. It will be about, I don't know, 30 centimeters wide, exactly the same height as the cooker unit, with a worktop across it. On the worktop I will inset a small sink, and underneath I have two 10-litre jerry cans. One will be for my fresh water and the other will be for my wastewater, above which will be a small shelf, and that will be my sink unit. I don't need a big sink. The tap will just be a hand pump because there's no leisure battery. I don't need electricity to get a little bit of water up, and that will sit just here with the worktop across, and where it finishes will be the area where Bailey has his dog bed. Well, this is the sink unit constructed. It's just a dry run put together for now, just to see how it fits, and I've been able to fit in the shelf to the contour of the van side, and there'll be a worktop on there which I'll show you just in a minute. The sink will be in here, and underneath are the two water containers. These are the 10-litre jerry cans, and they'll fit in there, one for fresh water and the other for wastewater, and there's a little bit of a space down the side to squeeze something else in. This will have just one single door which will open that way. The nice thing about having constructed these units is the fact that all of the doors I can open at any time of the day or night, because the bed doesn't restrict my accessibility to the cupboards. I see some of these vans where you're trying to get a double bed in and it comes out to here, you can't open the door, or this space is almost redundant. That's how my unit's going to work, and in here there will be a little bit of space to put other bits and pieces in. All this storage space will get used, I'm sure, but I don't know what's going to fit in there for now. I'll show you the worktop. This just needs to come forward a bit, and I'll show you the worktop and how that sits on top. Before I bring it in, I should note that I have designed these units, as I said earlier, so that they will fit onto any holes or brackets that are already inside the van, and there are two holes here behind these little patches that I've got threaded apertures, so I will put brackets onto here which will then screw to the worktop, which I'll bring in now. And that will sit just like that. Obviously all of these things will get fixed into the van when I come to do the final fit, but you can see how the setup's going to work. Sink unit here, the sink will be inset there, and this is my cooker unit. It'll all be leveled up and neatened off. I'm going to cut back a bit more of this worktop, so there's actually a splashback going to be on the kitchen, so I don't splash the lining of the van when it's finished. And just about here, equal to this side panel, I'm going to build another small cupboard up here to make use of this space. I don't need a lot of work surface, I do need storage space. And again, the door, so I think that's looking pretty neat. I have left this gap here so that if I'm in here and I don't want to use the table for any reason, this table, when it's got legs on it, will be obviously a table. I wanted this space so that I would have somewhere to store the tabletop, and that's as good a spot as any, and it will just sit in there while I'm using the cooker or sitting on an evening. There are other places to store it, but that's as good a space as any, and it'll also allow me access to the catches which hold the cupboard in place. When I want to release the cupboard and take it outside, I can get into there and unclip the catches and away I go. This is the area which I've left totally free for the dog bed, and then here a short section of this worktop will be taken up by a cupboard with a single door on it for putting storage boxes in and putting food and art materials and things for when I'm out and about painting and using the van for the purpose I'm intending it for. The next stage for me now is to finish off the cut work surfaces, these edges here, and then take everything out and insulate and carpet line the whole of the van. I mentioned earlier about securing the units, the cabinets, to the van itself. So I'm going to screw them down onto the floor using the furniture blocks, which is how I think most people do it. But I've actually been able to measure and design the units so that I can secure them to some of the sides of the van using the pre-drilled holes which I showed you earlier. As an example, here's one on the driver's side near the back, and these are covered with these little sticky patches put in by Nissan, and you can see in here there's a prefixed threaded hole there. There was just a patch over that. This actually served no purpose in the combi van, and it takes an M6 bolt, and it just so happens that this is exactly the level that I've designed the workbench on this side. So what I've done is I've taken a couple of angle brackets. In fact, these were flat brackets, drilled an extra wide hole, bent it in a vise, and then these get fixed using the holes, and that will secure my workbench. This flat plate will be on the underside of the, not the workbench, of the worktop. So those two will hold the worktop. There's one here. I've taken the bolt out here, which actually holds part of the door catchment. I've taken the bolt off and secured another bracket into there. That's just behind the driver's side sliding door. And on the other side of the van near the back, I've done exactly the same thing again, horizontally, and this is going to hold the upright on the edge of my bed box, if you like. So that will screw into the panel. I'll show you that later when it's all done. But those 4 holes I've used, I haven't had to do any drilling into the side of the van, no need to put more holes in the van, and all the cabinets will be secured into the van itself. I've constructed all the units using the IKEA door panels and other short panels. So I've made the bed box, which I'm sitting on, which you've seen earlier, the cooker unit, which has had a couple of more refinements on it, even though it doesn't look finished yet. It's in progress of being finished. It's got its own worktop on the top. And then this is the sink unit with the sink now fitted and in place. You can just see the underside of it there. And the tap has been loosely fitted in its final position. And the shelf fitted, and there's the space for the 2 water tanks. And then on the top, this took a little bit of doing. It's the upper cupboard, which has got basically 2 shelves, which will be the food storage and a bit of a clothes storage cupboard. That was awkward to cut because it fits the shape of the side of the van, and when the ceiling panel was fitted, I'll have to take a little bit more off the top, but at least it's in situation now. Now the cupboard doors have been made. All I need to do to those is fit the hinges and the catches. I've got a bit of paintwork to do on those, and then they will be fitted when all the cupboards are in for their final fix inside the van, so that the cupboards are actually all perfectly square and screwed down into the van itself. Just to show you, the doors are actually very simple. As you can see, they're the IKEA doors with some hinges already. Those will be capped off, and then I'll fit new hinges into there, and the doors will be a really straightforward plain door with the catches halfway down. And the nice thing is they're nice clean lines and easily wiped down. Lovely finish on them and very plain, simple. This light grey works really well in here because obviously the van's like a silver colour anyway, but the light colour, plain light colour, has been easy to work with, and it doesn't make the van look too dark and austere inside, so it's got that brightness to it. I'm going to paint some detailing on it, which will give it a little bit of a lift, if you like, a design colour lift. I'll show you that later. The upper cupboard has got a single door. Which will fit like that. So everything will have a really clean line. I'm really excited about this because it just is a very simple look. I don't think this size of a van needs to be complicated. It just needs to be nice, clean, sleek lines, easily kept clean. So those are the doors. My next job, I've got to put an interior shelf in here and drill the holes for the hinges for the doors. And once the units are out, I'll carpet line the van, bring the units back in, do their final fit and fit the doors. And we're getting towards a sort of a final stage at the minute, even though it doesn't look like it. Let's carry on. The next unit to go in is what I call the sink unit. And it's going to fit about here. Like the bed storage unit, it will also attach onto this bracket, which is fixed to the wall of the van. So once I've got that fixed, I need to make sure it's square. And the way I'm going to do that is by refitting the door, which I know is square, and then moving the unit so that it matches the door. And that way I can then fix it in, knowing that I've got a good square fit onto the floor. So it's up against the wall of the van. I'll just fix it with 2 screws onto this bracket and then fix the door. So now that I've got the unit in place, fixed to the wall and the door on, I've been able to square it up by just tapping it gently, and I know that the cabinet's perfectly square. So I'll just mark on the floor with a pencil where it should sit, and then I can fix it to the floor using the furniture blocks. And that's the sink unit in. It's the first time I've actually seen the door on in the van with the painted edge. I think the overall effect is going to look really smart. Next is the worktop, the sink unit. a simple case of just attaching it underside inside the unit and fixing that to the two brackets at the far end, which I'll show you in a minute. Just for ease, I'll take the door off and I can then get in and do the fixing properly. I'm too worried about damaging the door at this time, even though I shouldn't be, but yeah. Just gives me that bit more space. Well, it was a bit awkward, but got in the end. Unit all fully fitted in. Just put the door back on now. That's that. Just the two supports at the other end to fit, so I'll move around the other side and show you how I'm going to do that. At the back of the unit, this is where Bailey's dog bed will be. Underneath the work surface, you'll see, just get near it, you'll see the two brackets that I fixed into the van wall, which were on those pre-drilled holes, which I showed you earlier. There's the brackets, and there's the underside of the unit. So I'm going to attach the unit to those brackets. There's a slight hiccup in that, for some reason, which I'm not too sure how it's come about, there's a bit of a gap appeared. When I did the dry run, there was no gap. It's a bit frustrating, but what I'm going to do is simply fill in those gaps. I've cut a couple of small pieces of ply and pre-drilled them, and they're going to go in there like that, and then I'll screw right through those and fix the work surface securely to those brackets. It's quite simple, but a little bit frustrating, but there you go. Not everything runs 100%, so I'll get on and do that job. There we are, the two brackets and the wooden support blocks fitted in. Hope you can just see those there in the light, and that's the work surface fully secured to the van. So this last unit is the small cupboard which fits on top of this work surface up to the ceiling, and when I did it originally in the dry run, it fitted okay, but I knew I had to make some adjustments when I put the carpet lining in, and so I've done the adjustments, and it should now just slip straight in, ready for fixing. That's a tight fit. And I already have pencil marks on the work surface where the unit's going to go. And that's it, slotted perfectly into place. I'll just fix it in with some blocks, and I'll fix it into the unit at the back, the splash back on the sink area, and fit the door. There we are. Now that I've got the sink unit and storage cupboard finished, I suppose I'd best show it to you. As you can see, I've hand painted the edges of all the doors and work surfaces with this green, because it really complements the grey of the rest of the vehicle and gives it a bit of a colour tint. I'll come round and show you the units as they are finished. What I've done, I've been able to utilise this end of the storage cupboard and fix on there my tripods and monopods for my photography. Underneath, you remember I had to fix the worktop with these brackets, and you can see I've finished them off now by actually covering them with the carpet lining, because I think that gives a good finished result. I've tucked items away into these side panel pockets. This is my painting kit here, so that's in a really good space. Bailey's dog bed, nicely tucked in there. He loves being in there. And then I'll go into the van and show you what we've got. And this is my sink unit and storage cupboard. I'll show you the sink unit first. I've made a cover for the sink out of spare bits of worktop which I had around the workshop. That provides me with extra space to put cups and things when I'm cooking. In here's the sink and the tap. Now, I should have mentioned earlier, the sink is actually just I think it was £12, £13 salad bowl, mixing bowl, which I bought in a hardware store. I was able to buy a waste fitting from an online store that sold things for campers and caravans, and that's dead simple to fit in. Here is the tap, very simple to operate. Every time you pump it either up or down, you get water from your supply. I made the splashback out of a couple of bits of offcuts, so that I've got a little shelf if I want to put soap on there when I'm having a wash in the morning, or when I'm washing up on an evening, I can put the washing up materials on there. And underneath, in the cupboard, there's the sink and the shelf, which I've used to store all the things that you'd normally have a kitchen for washing up liquid, sponges, cloths, dishcloths, all go in there really nice and neat. Underneath are my two jerry cans, this one for wastewater and this one for fresh water. They're both strapped in so they don't move around, not that they're going to move anywhere, they're a really good fit. I have another small bottle in there which fits in nicely. I'll leave that to your imagination what I use that for. And toilet roll. And then the storage cupboard. On the side of the storage cupboard I have fitted a small spice rack which I bought from IKEA and painted it to match the interior of the van, and that stores my tea, coffee, sugar, salt and pepper, things like that, all held in securely by washing up sponge and a cloth so that they don't rattle around when we're on the move. That's been a great little asset. And here's the storage cupboard. So I've packed it. It's not full at the minute, but it looks full, but there's plenty of space left to go. So the top shelf I use for my art materials and spare clothes and my wash bag. Still plenty of room to get other things in there. Haven't crammed it up with stuff just yet. And in here, bottom shelf is my food and dog food. There's an empty box there. I haven't filled that up yet. I'm not too sure what I'm going to put in that, but I just have these boxes, so I'll put them in the units. And that's my food box, which I'll show you in another film. And I don't know if you can see, but away at the back there are other things like tins and other containers carrying noodles and rice and things like that. And at the back you may just be able to see what I've done is I've taken a spare offcut of thin ply, covered it on both sides with carpet, and I've been able to slide it in from the side here past the window, and that slides in to form a backing to the cupboard. That means that anyone who's having a nosy in from outside can't see what I've got inside the cupboard. That backing is removable, so if any time I needed to clean the windows or anything like that, I can just slide that out, clean the windows and slide it back in again. That's a good little feature. And that's the sink unit and storage cupboard, made to my own design and measurements out of IKEA doors and worktops. Hopefully that short film will give you a good idea of how I completed that stage in the process of converting my Nissan NV200. Do check out my channel for the other films which show all the other stages of the conversion from start to finish. If you've enjoyed the film, do click the like button, and hopefully you may feel inclined to even subscribe to this channel. You may also be interested in my other work, my proper work, my painting and photography. If so, do have a look at my website. The address is www.andybeckimages.co.uk. Thanks for watching.